Aging is a privilege not everyone gets to experience, but let's be honest, it's not always easy. We step into a new chapter of life, one that's rich with memories and wisdom, but also filled with unexpected challenges. Maybe you've noticed that some habits have crept into your daily routine, small things hardly worth a second thought. But what if I told you that these innocent behaviors could be quietly pushing people away without you even realizing it? Let's pause for a second. Have you ever been telling a story, something from your past that felt important, only to see the younger people around you glance at their phones or change the subject? Or maybe you've proudly talked about your children's accomplishments, but afterward, you sensed a strange tension in the air. Moments like these seem harmless, right? But they might be creating an invisible wall between you and the people you love most. But here's the real plot twist. Some of these habits aren't just pushing others away. They're shaping how you see yourself. Little by little, they chip away at your confidence, leaving you feeling isolated or misunderstood. They can even rob you of the deep, joyful connections you've spent a lifetime building. And the scariest part? Most of us have no idea it's happening. The good news is it doesn't have to be this way. Aging can still be a time of vibrant connection, personal growth, and unexpected joy. It's all about awareness, recognizing the behaviors that no longer serve us, and gently letting them go can transform how we experience this stage of life. In today's video, we'll explore 9 surprising behaviors that many older adults fall into without realizing it. Some of them might surprise you. Others may feel uncomfortably familiar. But by the end of this video, you'll not only recognize these patterns, you'll have practical ways to change them. You'll learn how small shifts can help you reconnect with the people around you and rediscover the confidence you thought you'd lost. And don't worry, this isn't about judgment. This is about growth, about learning to see these behaviors for what they are, temporary obstacles on your path to living a more peaceful, connected, and fulfilling life. So, what's the first behavior we'll talk about? Here's a clue. It's something we all do from time to time, especially when we're excited to share our experiences. But if it becomes a habit, it can quietly push people away, even those who love and respect us dearly. Curious? Good. Stay with me because what you're about to discover might just change how you experience this next chapter of life, for the better. Let's dive in. So, let's talk about that first behavior, monopolizing conversations. It's easy to fall into without even realizing it. After all, life has given us so many experiences to share, stories packed with adventure, lessons learned, and moments that shaped who we are today. Naturally, we want to pass on that wisdom to those around us. But here's the thing. When we dominate conversations too often, we unintentionally push others away. Picture this. You're at a family gathering and someone starts talking about a recent trip. It reminds you of a road trip you took back in the day, so you jump in with your story. Before you know it, you've taken over the conversation. You're deep into your memories, vividly recounting every detail. But then you notice the energy in the room shifting. People glance at their phones, some look away, others nod politely but seem distant. It's not that your story isn't interesting. It's that sometimes what people want more than a story is to feel seen and heard. Conversation is a shared experience. When one person takes the lead for too long, others step back. And when that happens repeatedly, it can create distance instead of connection. Here's a simple but powerful trick. Set a mental limit for yourself during conversations. After sharing one story, pause and ask, "What about you? What's been going on in your world?" Or, "I'd love to hear your thoughts on that." You'd be surprised how much more engaged people become when they feel invited to speak. Listening isn't just polite, it's transformational. It deepens relationships and builds trust. And here's the irony. The less we speak, the more people value what we say. But monopolizing conversations isn't the only habit that can create distance. Another sneaky one is excessive bragging. Now, let me be clear, being proud of your accomplishments, your family, or the life you've built is a beautiful thing. You should celebrate it, but there's a fine line between sharing your joy and unintentionally alienating others. For example, imagine you're having coffee with an old friend, and you start talking about how well your children are doing. One just got promoted, the other bought a new home. You're sharing this with nothing but pride and good intentions. But Suddenly, you notice your friend's smile fading. They nod, but something feels off. What's happening? It's not about you, it's about them. Not everyone is in the same place. Maybe your friend's child is struggling to find a job, or they're facing financial difficulties. Your story, while innocent, might make them feel insecure or disconnected. The good news is, you can still share your stories in a way that invites connection instead of comparison. Shift the focus from the outcome, "My kids are so successful," to the journey, "Raising my kids taught me so much about resilience and patience." Suddenly, your story becomes relatable, and your friend feels seen instead of overshadowed. And then there's judging people based on first impressions, a behavior that sneaks up on all of us. With decades of life experience, it's easy to believe we can assess someone's character within moments of meeting them. We've seen enough to think, "I know who they are." But first impressions can be deceiving, and when we judge too quickly, we miss the chance to form deeper connections. Think about a time when someone misjudged you. Maybe they assumed something about you based on your appearance or misunderstood your intentions. How did it feel? Frustrating? Hurtful? Now, flip the script. How many potential connections might you have miss because you judged too quickly? Here's a challenge for the next time you meet someone new. Replace judgment with curiosity. Instead of making assumptions, ask open-ended questions. Get to know their story. You might just discover something unexpected and meaningful. Some of the best friendships begin when we look beyond first impressions and make room for understanding. Now let's talk about a behavior that many people overlook: neglecting personal appearance. I know what you might be thinking. At this age, why should it matter how I look? And it's true, kindness, wisdom, and character are far more important than any physical appearance. But here's something we don't always realize: how we present ourselves impacts how we feel about ourselves. Think about how you feel after a fresh haircut or when you wear an outfit that fits just right. There's a little bounce in your step, a lightness in your mood. It's not about impressing anyone, it's about honoring yourself. Now, imagine seeing an old friend after years apart, but they've stopped taking care of themselves. Their clothes are worn, their hair disheveled. What impression does that leave? It's not about vanity, it's about staying connected to life and showing up for yourself. Even small efforts, like wearing something that makes you feel good or keeping up with grooming, can make a huge difference. These little routines remind us that we're still engaged with the world. Self-care is a way of saying, "I still matter." And the truth is, you do. You always will. But maintaining a strong sense of self isn't just about how we look. It's also about how we relate to others. That brings us to the next behavior: expecting respect without earning it. There was a time when simply reaching a certain age automatically commanded respect. People deferred to elders without question. But times have changed. Younger generations are more independent thinkers. They challenge authority, question traditions, and expect mutual respect. It can be frustrating when we don't receive the deference we once did. After all, you've lived through decades of experiences and your insights have real value. But here's the key: respect is a two-way street. The best way to receive it is to give it first. Next time you find yourself in a conversation with someone younger, try something different. Listen without judgment. Instead of assuming they don't understand as much as you do, ask about their experiences. Show genuine interest. You'll be amazed at how quickly they'll open up. When we listen first, we build trust and connection. And when we share our experiences with humility, not as a lecture but as part of a dialogue, people listen. They respect us because they feel respected too. Now let's address something heavier: holding onto grudges. This is one of the most common behaviors that can quietly weigh us down over time. Life isn't always kind. Family conflicts, friendships that end badly, or misunderstandings that never get resolved. These things happen to all of us. And sometimes those hurts linger for years. Holding on to that anger or disappointment feels justified. It even feels protective, like a shield that keeps us from being hurt again. But here's the hard truth: holding on to grudges doesn't hurt the other person. It only hurts us. It keeps us stuck in the past, unable to move forward or fully enjoy the present. Grudges are like carrying a heavy stone in your heart. At first, it might not seem like a big deal, but over time, that weight becomes unbearable. Forgiveness isn't about letting the other person off the hook. It's not about forgetting what happened. It's about choosing peace over pain. It's about freeing yourself from the emotional prison that a grudge creates. Imagine what it would feel like to let go of that burden, not for their sake, but for yours. Imagine waking up with a lighter heart and more space for new, positive experiences. If you're holding on to a grudge right now, take a moment to ask yourself, is this serving me or is it holding me back? One simple way to start the process is by writing a letter to the person involved. Not to send, but to express everything you've been holding inside. Acknowledge your feelings and then let them go. Sometimes just putting your emotions into words can be the first step toward healing. Another sneaky behavior that can keep us stuck is resisting change. As we get older, it's easy to become set in our ways. We've spent decades building routines, forming opinions, and establishing a way of life. Change can feel threatening, like it's challenging everything we've built. But here's the thing, change is inevitable. The world around us keeps evolving whether we like it or not. And while resisting it might feel comfortable in the short term, it can also isolate us from the people and opportunities that matter most. Think about the changes you've resisted in recent years. Maybe it's learning to use new technology, adopting new habits, or adjusting to societal shifts. Now ask yourself, what has that resistance cost me? Has it kept you from connecting with your grandchildren because they communicate through social media? Has it kept you from exploring new hobbies or experiences because they felt unfamiliar? The truth is, staying open to change keeps us connected, engaged, and alive. It doesn't mean you have to embrace every new trend, but it does mean staying curious and willing to learn. Life is still full of new experiences waiting to be discovered, no matter how many years you've lived. Now that we've explored some of the habits that can quietly pull us away from the life we want, the question is, what do we do next? How do we move beyond these behaviors and rediscover the joy and connection we deserve? The answer might surprise you. It starts with letting go. And I'm not just talking about grudges or regrets. It's about letting go of the image of who you think you're supposed to be and embracing who you are right now. Here's the plot twist. Holding on to who we used to be is often the very thing that keeps us from growing. We cling to the roles we've played for decades. The successful professional, the devoted parent, the dependable friend. But as life changes, so do our roles. And that's where things get tricky. We don't want to let go of those old identities because they've been with us for so long. They've shaped how we see ourselves and how others see us. But refusing to let go of those roles can trap us in the past. We start living in a world of remember when, instead of what's next. We long for the good old days while missing the opportunities right in front of us. Take Mary, for example. For 35 years, she was the go-to person in her family, the one who hosted every holiday, solved every problem, and kept everyone together. But as her children grew older and started their own families, Mary found herself feeling lost and unappreciated. The identity she had built her life around no longer fit her reality. At first, she fought against the change. She tried harder to maintain control, calling her kids every day, offering advice they didn't ask for, and insisting on keeping old traditions alive. But instead of bringing them closer, it pushed them away. It wasn't until Mary decided to let go, really let go, that things began to change. She stopped clinging to the past and started exploring new roles for herself. She joined a local art class, reconnected with old friends, and gave her children the space to grow into their own roles. The result? A deeper, more meaningful relationship with her family, and a newfound sense of purpose. Here's the controversial part. Letting go of certain identities may feel like giving up, but it's actually the opposite. It's an act of courage and self-love. It's about making space for something new to grow. And that brings us to embracing change, one of the most challenging things we can do at any age. It's no secret that change can be terrifying. We're creatures of habit, and we find comfort in routine. But when we resist change for too long, we stop evolving. We stay in our comfort zones, even when they've become prisons. Here's a real-world example. Think about technology. How many of us have resisted learning to use smartphones, social media, or even basic video calls? It's easy to dismiss these things as unnecessary, but in doing so, we risk cutting ourselves off from the people we love. Grandchildren grow up communicating through FaceTime and social media. Family photos are shared digitally. Memories are captured on smartphones. By resisting these changes, we don't just miss out on technology, we miss out on connection. But here's the good news. Change doesn't have to be overwhelming. Start small. Pick one thing that feels manageable. Maybe it's learning how to send voice messages or join a video call. Maybe it's trying a new hobby or joining a local group that interests you. These small changes add up, opening doors you never knew existed. And here's the kicker. The more we embrace change, the easier it becomes. Our brains adapt, our hearts open, and we discover that life still has plenty of surprises in store, good ones. Once we begin letting go of old roles and embracing change, another door opens, the door to rebuilding connections. This is where things get exciting but also a little uncomfortable, because true connection often requires something we tend to avoid: emotional vulnerability. Here's a tough question. When was the last time you truly opened up to someone? Not about surface level things like the weather or what you had for lunch, but about your hopes, your fears, or even your regrets. It's scary, right? Being vulnerable feels risky. We worry about being judged or misunderstood. But here's the twist. Vulnerability isn't a weakness, it's a superpower. It's the key to creating deep, meaningful relationships. Take David, for example. After losing his wife of 40 years, he withdrew from everyone. He didn't want to burden his family with his grief, so he put on a brave face. But over time, that mask became a wall, separating him from the people who loved him most. His children stopped calling as often, unsure of how to connect with him. His friends grew distant. David told himself he was fine, but deep down he felt more alone than ever. One day during a family dinner, something unexpected happened. His granddaughter asked him, "Grandpa, are you ever lonely?" For the first time in years, David didn't brush it off. He took a deep breath and said, "Yes, sometimes I am." What followed was a conversation that changed everything. His children opened up about their own struggles. His friends reached out more often. And David realized something powerful. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we give others permission to do the same. It's counterintuitive, but the walls we build to protect ourselves are often the very things that keep us isolated. Letting those walls down takes courage, but it also opens the door to genuine connection. If you've been avoiding vulnerability, start small. Share a little more than you normally would. Maybe it's a fear you've been carrying or a dream you haven't told anyone about. Trust me, the people who truly care about you will lean in, not walk away. But here's where it gets tricky. Rebuilding connections also means having some tough conversations. Sometimes we need to confront the past to move forward. That could mean reaching out to someone you've drifted apart from, maybe an old friend or a family member you haven't spoken to in years. And here's the plot twist. Sometimes the relationship you thought was lost forever just needs one brave step to be restored. Take Helen and her sister, Susan. They hadn't spoken in over a decade after a family dispute. Both of them were waiting for the other to make the first move. Helen believed it was too late to fix things, that too much time had passed. But one day she decided to write a letter. Not an angry one, not a letter filled with accusations, but one that simply said, "I miss you. I hope we can talk." To her surprise, Susan responded almost immediately. She had been waiting for the same thing. Their first conversation wasn't perfect, but it was real. It was a start. And that's all it takes, a start. Not every relationship will be repaired, and that's okay. What matters is that you try. That you leave the door open for connection, even if it's just a crack. Because those small cracks often let the light back in. And here's the thing, when we rebuild connections and embrace vulnerability, something magical happens. We rediscover a part of ourselves that we thought was gone. We find strength in being real. We feel lighter. And the world feels a little less lonely. But it's not just about reconnecting with others. It's about reconnecting with yourself. Take a moment to ask yourself, what part of me have I been neglecting? Maybe it's the part of you that used to love painting but hasn't picked up a brush in years. Or the part that used to dance like no one was watching. Or the part that dreamed about writing a book, learning a new language, or exploring the world. It's never too late to reconnect with those parts of yourself. Life is still happening. There are still new experiences waiting for you. The only thing standing in your way is the belief that it's too late. Here's the truth, it's not too late. It never is. Letting go of what no longer serves you, embracing change and reconnecting with yourself, these are the building blocks of something even greater, rediscovering your purpose. Life is constantly evolving, and so are you. The roles you played in the past may no longer fit, but new opportunities are waiting. Purpose doesn't have to be something grand or complicated. Sometimes, it's found in the simplest moments, volunteering at a local charity, starting a new hobby, or spending time with people who bring you joy. Here's the twist. Purpose isn't something you find, it's something you create. It grows from curiosity, connection, and action. The key is to stay open, to keep exploring, and to believe that the best chapters of your story might still be ahead. Ask yourself, what excites me? What makes me feel alive? Those answers are your guide. It's never too late to start again. Your next adventure is out there, waiting for you to say yes. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Now it's time to take the next step. Everything we talked about today, letting go, embracing change, reconnecting with others, and rediscovering your purpose, is within your reach. But the real transformation starts with you. So here's my question for you. Which step will you take first? Will it be a small act of kindness towards someone you've drifted away from? A simple change in your daily routine? Or maybe reaching out to an old friend you've missed? Let us know in the comments below. Type yes if you're ready to embrace this new chapter with open arms. And if this video resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear these words today. Remember, it's never too late to grow, to connect, and to live fully. The best parts of life aren't behind you, they're still unfolding. Thank you for watching. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video.